A few months ago, I told you about Chen Zhi, the guy who went from running internet cafes in China to building a $60 billion empire in Cambodia. This is the same guy that was allegedly making $30 million a day running forced labor scam compounds. I told you about how all of his assets got seized across 4 different continents, $14 billion in Bitcoin, 19 properties in London, 26 luxury cars in Taiwan, and $350 million frozen in Hong Kong. At the end of that episode, I think it was episode 6, I said that he was in the wind, that he vanished. Well, he got. On January 6th, Cambodian authorities arrested Chen Zhi. So let's talk about what happened, what's new, and why some of the details around this case are a little strange. But first, let's recap what you might have missed on that original episode. Again, you can go listen back on that at episode 6, I believe. Yes. Chen Zhi moved to Cambodia around 2011. And this was right around the same time that Chinese money was really flooding into the country under the Belt and Road Initiative set up by China. He founded the Prince Group in 2015, and he built it into one of Cambodia's largest conglomerates. We're talking about commercial banks, airlines, luxury hotels, shopping malls, and even a planned $16 billion eco-city near the coast. On the surface, he looked like a successful entrepreneur and a philanthropist. He donated millions of dollars to various charities. But he kept a low profile. People who worked with him said that he was courteous and measured, and he wasn't the kind of guy seeking attention. But according to the U.S. prosecutors, the philanthropy and the real estate were just a front. All the real money was coming from industrial-scale fraud. The indictment alleges that Prince Group operated at least 10 forced labor scam compounds across Cambodia. These are facilities surrounded by high walls and barbed wire, where trafficked workers were held against their will, and they were forced to run pig butchering scams, romance scams, and cryptocurrency investment frauds. Their operations allegedly generated millions of dollars per day at their peak. When the US and the UK moved against him in October of 2025, they designated the Prince Group a transnational criminal organization. They hit him with all kinds of sanctions. This is around the same time when authorities in Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, and Taiwan started freezing everything else that they could find. So when all of that was happening, when everything started to come down and the walls were closing in on Chen and the Prince Group, he vanished and nobody knew where he was. But then in December of 2025, Cambodia revoked his citizenship by royal decree. And that was a big deal because with his citizenship gone, he's just another Chinese national sitting on Cambodian soil. Shortly after, Cambodian authorities picked him up along with 2 of his associates. Chinese Ministry of Public Security put out a statement calling it a major achievement in law enforcement cooperation. They said that they're preparing arrest warrants for the other key members of his organization, and they urged anyone involved to surrender immediately. So it looks like the system is working. International pressure, forced action, and countries coordinated together, and the bad guy is now in custody, facing serious charges. But there's a whole other layer to the story that's worth paying attention to. Let's revisit this Bitcoin seizure that the U.S. did. So the U.S. seized approximately 127,271 Bitcoin from Chen Zhi. At current prices, that's worth around $15 billion. But here's where things get a little interesting. China is now claiming that the United States didn't seize that Bitcoin through normal law enforcement channels. They're claiming that the U.S. stole it. Let's go back in time a little more. See, back in December of 2020, Chen ran a Bitcoin mining operation that got hacked. Someone drained over 127,000 Bitcoin from his wallets. At the time, that was worth around $4 billion. And Chen apparently went crazy over this. He was trying to get it back. There's reports saying that he posted over 1,500 messages on various different platforms offering a massive bounty to anyone that could help him recover the funds. But nobody ever came forward. and the coins never moved. For almost 4 years, that Bitcoin just sat in those wallets doing nothing. Blockchain analysts could see it sitting there, but whoever took it never tried to move it or cash it out, which is unusual, right? Because if you steal 4 billion of crypto, you think at some point you try to do something with it. So fast forward a little bit to 2024, the coin suddenly started to move. And a few months later, the United States announces that they seized 127,000 Bitcoin from Chen Zhi. China's cybersecurity agency put out a technical report on this. They're alleging that the U.S. intelligence services were behind the original hack in 2020. Beijing Daily ran a piece calling it Black Eating Black, which means criminals preying on criminals. China's argument isn't that the Bitcoin belonged to them. They're saying that it doesn't belong to the U.S., especially when a huge portion of the victims were Chinese citizens. You see, China's been cracking down on these scam operations specifically because they were targeting on Chinese people. So if there's $15 billion in recovered funds, China's position is that their citizens have a claim to that money too. Now, whether the U.S. actually hacked Chen back in 2020, I have no idea. That's just the allegation presented by China, and they have their own reasons to push that narrative. But the timing is suspicious. Someone took that Bitcoin in 2020. There was a hack back then, and it sat dormant for almost 4 years. And now somehow the U.S. gained custody of it in 2025, right when they were building the case. The Justice Department hasn't explained how they got access to those wallets, and the indictment doesn't get into where the private keys came from. Maybe there's a perfectly normal explanation, but right now we don't have one. But besides all of that, the scam industry in Cambodia is still running. Chen Zhi was the biggest name. He was the face of the operation, but arresting one guy, even the guy at the top, doesn't shut down an industry. One researcher who studies transnational crime in the region described Cambodia as a mafia state actor that got backed into a corner and chose the best option available. It's not really a sign of legitimate reform, it's just damage control. It looks like Chen was arrested because the international pressure made doing nothing impossible. Chen was just the sacrificial lamb. He was the guy that they could hand over and make it look like they were doing something. He wasn't the entire operation. He's just the most visible part of it. He'll face trial for fraud and money laundering and human trafficking. China has given the death penalty to scam kingpins that they've brought back from Southeast Asia. So it is looking pretty grim for him. But somewhere in Cambodia and places like Myanmar, compounds with high walls and barbed wire still hold people who are being forced to scam strangers on the internet. They continue generating billions of dollars for people we'll probably never hear about. I mean, Chen Zhi was barely on our radar until a couple months ago. It's safe to say that there's still a lot of work to be done in the international scam industry. But for now, we got Chen Zhi. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please send it to a friend or family member and don't get got.